Thank you for joining us in finding God in the world of video games.
So, E3 2021 came and went,
Yes, it
and
did.
while there were a few nice surprises
Metroid Dread and the Guardians of the Galaxy game. It's pretty cool.
and a handful of, expected release window reveals.
Breath of the Wild 2, Elden Ring, anybody? Finally actually going to happen?
There was one large announcement that should be voted by all of its classmates as most likely to have farther reaching implications than we may have realized.
That seems really long to put in a yearbook, but okay.
Yeah, it's...
But I
don't know
won't
how to
disagree.
shorten it.
Honestly, I think that there's most likely to succeed, most popular, most likely to have farther reaching implications than we may have realized. I think it all just goes together. Video games come and go, and only a handful truly represent a paradigm shift that dramatically changes the gaming industry. I think most of us probably recognize that the Elder Scrolls series was one of those watershed moments in console gaming. Both Oblivion as well as Skyrim introduced many gamers to the action RPG genre for the very first time, and their influence still reverberates to this day in just about any open world game that we play. Now sure, clearly there were role-playing games and open world games that existed prior to these mega hits, but none of them were so genre-defining as the Elder Scrolls series. Bethesda did not just break the mold when they made these games. They turned around and resold us that mold in about 18 different, slightly improved releases, complete with additional overpriced horse armor just for good measure. And we bought it.
Every single time. Okay, so maybe 18 is a bit of a stretch.
Maybe it was 17.
That might still be a stretch. But I think I get your point. We happily repurchased Elder Scrolls Skyrim on different platforms in, legendary editions that included additional content, and then again in VR because why not add motion sickness to the equation?
Why not? Who wouldn't enjoy that? So when Bethesda was purchased and absorbed by Microsoft, the immediate concern that I think all of us were looking at was, when will we get our hands on the next big title? When will it even come to the console I currently possess? And here's some rough news. Unless you are, or plan to become, the proud owner of a fancy Xbox Series S or X console, some tough news for you. You may want to sit down for this one.
I've been sitting down the whole time. We're always sitting down for these.
Not us, man. Them.
Oh, well.
People.
Honestly, I kind of assumed they were probably sitting down too. Who's reading and watching our stuff standing?
Honestly, who's reading and watching our stuff at all? Wait, don't answer that. Also, I'm she watches our stuff. At any rate, the next big game from Bethesda absolutely does look amazing. It was described by the developer as Skyrim in space, which honestly is probably the three most beautiful words that have ever been uttered in the English language. Well, maybe right after someone saying, want some fries. But I would pick my feet up off of that rug if I was you. It's about to be pulled out from underneath anyone who happens to be an exclusive gamer in the PlayStation family of consoles, because Starfield, it's not coming. Well, not for you.
This was always a potential outcome from the Microsoft acquisition, but that doesn't make it any easier to absorb for those who can't or won't pick up a new Xbox between now and the launch of Starfield. We probably won't have it yet. We still don't.
It's more of, it's a can't, and it's not a won't, it's a can't.
Can't. We still can't.
You show me where you can find one.
It's nowhere to be found. And it also opens up a much more problematic line of questions. What about the next Elder Scrolls game? Or Dishonored, or any of the rest of the Bethesda future titles?
While we have observed that Microsoft did play nice when they acquired the Minecraft franchise a few years back, they continued to release it on all the current platforms, Nintendo, Sony, even after they purchased it. But now, it seems like the gloves are off. Starfield console exclusivity on the Xbox is certainly a bitter pill for Sony owners to swallow. It's probably not the last one. There's probably more to come. But before we start to villainize either side in this battle for exclusive content, let's stack up the reality for all these sides.
Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft all unapologetically generate games for their specific consoles within their in-house development studios. And we all have learned to accept that Mario and Link will not be crossing paths with Master Chief or Kratos at any point in the future.
But when a title that previously existed in a platform agnostic state is suddenly taken off the market, that can feel a little more frustrating, and maybe even feel like you might want to take that a little bit personally. I mean, we were accustomed to a very fluid situation with a level of accessibility that didn't force us to choose a side, and now we're being pressed to make a very uncomfortable decision.
It is a fairly universal understanding that supporting any of the various religious options present on this planet involves making a decision. Even the choice to pursue an agnostic or atheist viewpoint is still a decision, and these decisions inform our choices throughout the rest of our lives.
But what may not be immediately obvious is that the decision to follow Christ is not merely one singular decision, but the beginning of many decisions that will take the wide road that we were previously traveling on and narrow it down to his perfect destination for each of us. And every one of these decisions tend to move us from one location of mild discomfort to another. Each step on the path full of even more strange places, unfamiliar faces, and undesired challenges. And few people embody the complexities and the sacrifices that are involved with this walk of faith better than Abraham, the patriarch of the entire Jewish nation. Now, his story does start off pretty simple. Genesis chapter 12, verse 1. This is when we start getting introduced to what's going to happen here. The Lord says to Abraham, get out of your country, leave your family, get out of your father's house, go to a land that I will show you.
Cool. Just leave everything you have ever known, everyone you have ever known, and just go, and you will know, when you get there.
Yeah. And to his credit, Abraham did exactly what he was told. He packed up at the ripe old age of 75 years old, and he headed towards Canaan. We see that in the continuing part 4 through 6. Abram departed. Well, Abram at this time. He departed as the Lord had spoken to him. Lot went with him. Lot's his nephew. Abraham was 75 years old when he departed from Haran. Abraham took Sarah his wife, Lot his brother's son, all their possessions they had gathered, the people they had acquired, and they departed to go to the land of Canaan. They came to the land of Canaan. Abraham passed through the land to the place of Shechem, as far as the terebinth tree, and the Canaanites were then in the land, because it's called Canaan.
Well, here we go. We made it. Nobody asking, are we there yet? From the back of the, probably camel.
Probably the worst part of the camel, too, I would assume. They do spit. Spit out of both sides, though, I think. I don't want to.
That's not something I wanted to think about, but thanks. Time to pitch some tents and settle down in the promised land, right? I mean, we are settling down in the promised land, right?
Well, not as much as you probably hoped. Verses 7 through 9. Then the Lord appeared to Abram and said, to your descendants I will give this land. And he built an altar to the Lord who appeared to him, and he moved from there to the mountain east of Bethel. And he pitched his tent with Bethel on the west, Ai on the east. He built an altar to the Lord, called on the name of the Lord. Then Abraham journeyed going on still toward the south. So, this land of Canaan was clearly part of the long-term plan. But we're not exactly done here yet. Settling down was not in the cards for old Father Abraham. He went down to Egypt for a little while. He came back up to the same place. He ended up splitting from Lot, and he went to Hebron. There he went to Gerar. He headed out to Beersheba a little bit after that. Eventually he went back to Hebron.
The nomadic travels of Abraham led him from one adventure to another, with his path intersecting with kings, priests, armies, and much more. He made great decisions in some places, and, horrible decisions in others.
Yeah, he kept telling everyone his wife was a sister. It was not a good choice. He did that 2 times.
That's the
like,
dumbest.
How do you do it 2 times?
That's
like, at least come up with
the lamest and dumbest lie I've ever read, probably in the Bible. Like,
wasn't
why?
a good call. Didn't
like,
go well.
Why? And even the kings and the pharaohs were like, why would you? Anyway, that's for another time. I won't get into that.
I don't think we're gonna ever do the sister wife.
Probably not. But that's a rant for another time. But all along the way, he followed the path that the Lord was placing him on, because the journey he was on was not merely to a destination. The journey was the destination.
Our choice to follow Christ is merely step 1 on an adventure that will take us the rest of our lives to finish. It's not simply some new piece of, flair that we're adding to our name tag or our little lanyard while we go back, through our regularly scheduled routine. No, it changes everything about our lives and influences every decision we make going forward. So if it seems like every step you're making is slowly making you a little more uncomfortable, a little less self-sufficient, and putting you in gradually more challenging situations, guess what? You're actually on the correct path.
Our walk is a path of continually removing our self-sufficiency and placing all of our trust, our burdens, and our cares on the Lord. If we aren't in over our head, then we haven't ventured out past the point of our own capabilities yet.
That's right. Many fans of Bethesda's games are unhappy that Starfield is forcing players to make a choice that some may not have been ready to make yet, or at all. Either purchase a console you don't currently own, play the game on a PC, or choose not to play it at all. That's really the only 3 options that are being presented to us. But this may only be one of many difficult choices that are coming down the road as Bethesda makes additional decisions regarding all of their future releases. While the lack of access on other platforms is certainly disappointing for those who possess those other platforms, the reduced complexity in making this title for multiple consoles does have some fairly serious silver linings.
Starfield will be able to release much sooner. Next year, actually.
Surprises me.
Right? Because the developers aren't burdened with crafting this title for distinctly different consoles.
And because of the limited platform variations, the title will probably be significantly more polished and feature less game-breaking bugs than it would have otherwise. Cyberpunk.
I was going to say, are you really coughing right now?
No. That was supposed to be a joke, but then you butchered it. In additional perk, those who have gone all in on Xbox will even be able to play Starfield day 1 with their current Game Pass membership. So if you have Game Pass, you get the game with your membership, essentially for free for something you already paid for.
Unless it goes away a month after it comes on.
Well, they got to give you at least a month and a half just to finish downloading it.
But similarly, the decision to serve the Lord also brings some limitations that may exclude choices we previously enjoyed. The choice to remain exactly where we are, comfortably going through the motions with a new eternal destination once we graduate from this life, is not in the cards for any of us.
The choice to follow Christ is an active choice that will compel us to keep moving through continually challenging positions, forcing us into new challenges that place us well outside of our comfort zones and into some uncharted waters. Every time Abraham set his foot down in Canaan, he was taking a step inside of his inheritance. He was already in the promised land. But there was more to his destiny than simply booking his train ticket to Canaan. He didn't have trains. He walked. He met some new people. He walked some more. He went to war with some people. He walked a lot more. He had a son the wrong way. He walked a little bit farther. He had a son the Lord's way. And then guess what? He kept going.
At the age of 75, I would assume that that's the same 75 as our now 75.
Yeah, the Earth goes around the sun the same way.
75. Okay. Abraham had just started his journey. The next 100 years of his life were one adventure after another as he began a journey of abandoning his own ways and leaning on the Lord. One uncomfortable decision at a time.
Our walk of faith is not just a choice that exists in a vacuum. It impacts each and every decision we make from that point forward. Steps that we could have taken without the Lord and His power leading us, they're not steps we should be taking, because the whole point of this journey is to live the life that we could not live without Him. Honestly, it's kind of the entire story of Abraham, as we see summarized in Hebrews 11. Now, and that chapter begins with faith as the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Then we jump forward to the part that talks about Abraham in verses 8 through 10. By faith, Abraham obeyed when he was called to go out to the place which he would receive as an inheritance. He went out not knowing where he was going. By faith, he dwelt in the land of promise as a foreign country, dwelling in tents with Isaac and Jacob, the heirs with him of the same promise. He waited for the city which has foundations, whose builder and maker is God.
Now, the things we hope for and, the things we may not yet have seen are plural for a reason, because there's going to be more than one. That is, kind of how plurals work.
Typically, there are many things that we'll be continuing to press forward into as we continue this path, each more difficult to see and lacking in discernible substance than the next. If we can make it happen on our own, it's not our destiny. If we can build it, it's not where we're meant to stay. If the decisions that lie ahead in our path don't push us past the sacrifices we were prepared to make and force us outside of our comfort zones and press us into a deeper state of reliance on the Lord, then we haven't actually moved forward yet, only sideways.
Our relationship with the Lord is not merely making one exclusive choice to serve Him. It is the beginning of a path marked with decisions to place our trust exclusively on Him as the water gets deeper, the storm gets louder, and the stakes get higher.
Even Jesus found that if you can still carry your cross alone, you haven't hit the hardest part yet. You see that in Luke 23:26. So I hope that this encourages you today to push into that next point of decision, even if it is foreign, uncomfortable, and contains a higher level of risk. He gave you a destiny to possess, one uncertain footstep at a time. Take that next step of faith today. The deeper waters beckon, but these stars aren't going to explore themselves.